The sport of off-road racing is full of incredible stories, wild characters, legends, and even villains. We cover it all on offroadracer.com, but there's only so much we can put down in an article. Sometimes we have to dig a little deeper, and that means sitting down with some of our industry's most influential characters and hitting record. Welcome to the Off-Road Racer podcast, a Mad Media production, made exclusively for offroadracer.com. Each month, we'll go beyond the dirt into the homes, shops, and lives of the most interesting and game-changing icons of our sport. You'll hear about their history, success, failure, and everything in between as we pull back the curtain and reveal the stories of their lives. I'm your host, Matt Martelli, and this is the Off-Road Racer podcast. Off-Road Racer Podcast, Cameron Steele, the Off-Road Ambassador. Cameron Steele is more than just a championship off-road racer. He is a true ambassador of off-road culture. From racing to commentating to leading tours down the Baja Peninsula, nobody has done as much to share off-road racing with the world as Cameron. In this episode of Off-Road Racer, we talk to Cameron about his past, present, and future, covering everything from racing in the desert to short course, and most recently, racing 5 different races at King of the Hammers. I'm your host, Matt Martelli, and this is Off-Road Racer. How you doing? How's everything going?
It's a crazy world we live in. Things are good. I'm a dad times 2. I got a little baby at home, and although we've been, locked down quite a bit, so my daughter can go to school, it's been cool because we've been able to share the time with our new baby. So it's a lot of fun.
That's nice. Well, you've been racing a little bit too, huh? How was Hammers?
Hammers was incredible. I love the community of off-road racing, and the thing that I think Hammers offers is you spend time on the trails, right? And there's just a bottleneck of people when you're pre-running and stuff, and you just get out and you walk around and you're talking to people, and I love the community of off-road racing and off-roading. So for me, it's cool because I just get to get out, stretch my legs, be in the outdoors, hike some rocks. And also for me, I get to do all these different disciplines. I get to get on my motorcycle, which I don't get to do very often in competition. So it makes it fun, just being out there and smelling it.
Yeah, that's cool. Well, just out of curiosity, you made that transition from desert racing to rock racing. Why did you choose to go into rock racing?
That's kind of a cool question, right? Why? Well, Cody Wagoner, who's a friend from San Clemente, I just got to know him over recent years. He came on Trail of Missions, and while we were there, we got to be better friends, and we're talking. He's like, "Hey, eventually, would you like to, race my car? Because he has a motion sickness. A lot of people don't know that." And I was like, "Yeah, I really want to do it, but we're kind of in a short time frame, so I don't want to do it this year. But if you're serious about it, ask me next year." And so he did, and what I love about it is I love the challenge, right? It's something totally different. My whole life, since I was a little kid, I've been going to the desert. I mean, far back as I can remember. And that led into racing off-road cars. But you add in the rocks and a whole different element to it. It's still off-road racing, and it's still racing, but it's a different thinking, and I love thinking. And that's why I love doing rally on my moto, because it's thinking. There's so much more to it. And I'm not saying that off-road racing is just on the gas go, but that's second nature to me. Now I'm thinking about something differently. And so the reason why I did it is just because it's fun, and it's a whole different group of people. And it's just expanding the horizons a little bit.
Yeah, that's really cool. I mean, how was the learning curve?
Steep. The learning curve is steep, and something I don't talk a lot about is I hate exposure, and I hate side hilling. So if you're going to rock race, if you're going to race hammer, you better get ready to side hill and live with exposure. And so I had to get used to that, but it's you got to really think about what you're doing, but you have to be ahead of what you're doing. You can't think in the moment. You have to think 100 yards ahead and really pick your lines and what you're doing. So it's been interesting, but when you talk about learning, I've had Cody Wagoner, who's a 7-time rock crawl champion, who's my coach, and then Wayne Israelson, who is my navigator, who has been at Hammers forever, and he's probably the most switched on tech guy of every aspect of racing. And
a shot guru.
Yeah, the stuff we have on our car is unbelievable. And then Jason Shear helped me as well. So it's been a cool transition, and I'm having a lot of fun with it. It's really cool.
I mean, that's one hell of a team. How can you go wrong? But you also put, especially this year, you put a lot of time in out there. What was that? Talk about that a little bit.
Well, I think that if you're going to do something, you got to be married to it, right? And so I've been married for 23 years. So I know what that's all about, and you got to really knuckle down and do it if you're going to do it right. And so for us, our goal was win the Baja 1000 for 14 years, right? And it took us a little bit of time to get there. And I'm applying the same discipline as I did to Baja as to the rocks, and I think it's paying off. And people think that it's an easy formula to just go out and just run it all the time. I'm not going to give away all my secrets, but we've worked really hard. Let me just say that spending 20 days in the rocks is nothing for us, especially when you think about all the effort and how cold it is out there. I mean, we were out there in 25-degree mornings riding our dirt bikes. Not fun, but we're doing it, and we made it fun. But it takes a lot of time, and I love the effort that it takes. A lot of hiking.
Sure. I mean, that's especially in Ultra 4 and King of the Hammers, that's one of the things that to me is impressive about it is, and how well you've done is these guys that have put in so much time out there that are just really just masters at the rocks. You know, like it's pretty, from my perspective, it's pretty intimidating to even take on.
I was intimidated for sure. And the first year when Cody asked me to go the first time with the Laser Nut team, I was like, well, I don't have enough time to really put the effort in right now. So that's why I wanted to wait. And it's intimidating. I mean, I've been locked into battles, racing head to head with the Gomez brothers, with Shannon Campbell, Waylon Campbell, got nerfed this year by Waylon at the top of a mountain I was nervous about. It's those guys, Randy Slauson, Eric Miller, I mean, so many great names and so much talent. The advantage I had is that I've done a lot of different sports, especially on off-road stuff. Like I've spent a ton of time in the dirt. So reading it and understanding it wasn't the hard part. It was the experience of understanding how this particular machine's gonna work. Sure. So that's what I had to do, is I had to undo all the things that I had already learned and all the things that I've spent time doing, and apply what I knew, but without being too much of a know-it-all to rock racing.
Sure.
And so I have a little bit different approach than a lot of the other drivers. I don't think anybody's caught on to that yet, but I think what we're doing is working. And like I said, it's fun because I have all these different people counting on me, but at the same time giving me all this coaching. And it's just like, I feel like a sponge. I'm just sucking it in. It's cool, and it's helping my off-road racing as well.
You know, that's one of the things, I mean, you talked about, you know, how long it took you to win the Baja 1000 and how much time you've put in down there. I mean, but then you go to rock racing and within a couple of years, you're already competitive. You think that has to do with the experience that you already have acquired?
I think it has to do with it. The one thing I think is a big transition, not a big transition for me, but a big transition for other people, is the tire that you're racing on. And what's ironic is we're racing on the same BFG 40 in our rock racer in the Laser Nut car in the 48 as we are in the number 16 trophy truck, just a little bit different compound. And so for me to get familiar with that was super easy. And taking everything I knew from desert racing and applying it to rock racing, but trying to wipe clean and take their notes, it was pretty interesting. So I think that it's been a little bit of a rapid learning curve, but at the same time, I really have tried to apply myself to make sure that I'm sucking it all up and putting it back out on the table. Because I think if I don't do a great job, I'm going to lose the interest of Wayne and Cody and Rodney, who preps the car, and everybody that's involved.
Well, I think, you know, one of the things that I love about what's happening there is it's connecting, you know, different parts of off-road racing together. And I think, you know, the guys that are helping you are interested in that. They see the value in what you bring to the table in terms of exposure, you know, and the fact that Dave Cole has invited trophy trucks to race, and now invited Class 10 UTVs and Class 11. I love that kind of camaraderie and connectivity.
Well, I think Dave was pretty smart about it. He actually laid the bait back in 2008 for me. He invited Pistol and myself out to race with rock racers, and I had the opportunity to drive Roger Lovell's car. But I was like, I know nothing about the rocks. I'll just navigate for Brad, and Roger, you drive. And Roger ended up getting on the podium that year. And I think if I would have raced that year, it would have been a waste. But what it did is it sucked me into it. And I became one of Dave's announce team for years on the live feed and on the TV shows or whatever. And I just got to know more and more about it. And I really wanted to be a part of it. And I think that might be part of why Cody asked me, because I had said over the years that, man, I really would like to have a shot at this. But once they brought the trophy trucks, I was like, oh yeah, we're in. And then I started thinking, well, we can do more than that. Let's do more. And I had already been riding King of the Motos, and I think it's just a great transition into all 5 classes. I think a lot of people think it's dumb and crazy, and even my team thinks that sometimes I'm wasting my time, but I learned something from every one of the disciplines that I can take to the others to try to propel us towards the win.
Well, explain to people who don't know what you did this year. It was really cool.
Well, last year I started off going for 5 races. I wanted to race the bike, the UTV, the Everyman Challenge, the King of the Hammer, and the T1. And totally unsuccessful. 0 for 5, like total donut, like lost, failed everything. And so everybody's like, you're not going to do that again, are you? And I'm like, yeah, I'm doing that again. I want to do it. I want to do it. I want your support to do it. And I had to ask, Mike Kraft from FIDAC, who is our engineer and big part of our trophy truck team, and Laser Nut Cody, like, hey, can I do these other things? And they're like, I don't know, it takes away from your time. Anyway, raced 5 classes again. I take that back. I raced 4 classes and I rode 1 class. Because really, I don't feel like I'm racing the motorcycle, because those guys are so much better than me, and I'm a little bit older than most of them. But I was stoked to qualify like in the top 30 on the moto thing. So I was pretty stoked. That was like we got second in T1. I'm like, that's pretty cool. And we led the Ultra 4, but to qualify, decent in the moto and not totally struggle was way better than the last couple times I raced it. So.
Well, I mean, for me to watch you do that, like, it's really cool, because it's a continuation of who you are as a person, what you've been for off-road racing since you're a kid. You've always been an ambassador who, rides bikes, races whatever vehicle it is. I mean, a lot of people don't know that you came up through the ladder system and raced a lot of different vehicles before you're racing trophy trucks. An announcer promoting the sport, racing short course. I know I'm missing a couple of things here. Oh, and all the trips that you take people on in Baja, from Rip to Cabo to trail emissions, hell,
Hell ride, yeah.
Hell ride, and on. So that's why to me, it was watching you do it. I'm like, of course he's going to do it that way. You think he's just going to show up for the trophy truck race and peace out? No, he's going to go all in and be part of the entire thing. So I thought it was really cool.
I appreciate that. Yeah, it's a continuation of my life. A lot of people probably think, oh, he was an announcer guy and then he decided he was going to off-road race. But a lot of people don't know that I've been off-road racing since I got in the car the first time when I was 12 with my dad and Johnny Johnson. They were my teachers, and Roy Allen. And from there, my dad started teaming me up with other drivers like Mike Leslie and David Hendrickson. And, so I learned a lot when I started driving when I was 15. And you talked about the ladder system. I kind of think it's lame that people come in and just buy like the top level race car and go racing. I think that you should start in a different place and find your way to that unlimited class. But I've raced, and no disrespect, if that's the way they want to do it, fine. But I raced 516, 1216, 7 4x4. I've been in a 9 car, raced 12 cars. I've done a 7 trucks, lots of stuff, bikes. And I just think it's cool because it gives me that whole background of the entire gamut of off-road cars. And I understand limited car racing, unlimited car racing, 2 wheels, 4 wheels. Now I understand 4-wheel drive and 2-wheel drive. It's been a hell of a lifestyle, When you think back to, being 12 years old and getting in the race car. I've been racing off-road cars for 35 years.
That's rad.
That's a long time, right? I mean,
well, but again, growing up, how you grew up in Southern California, and the same with me, it seems like completely normal and logical. I guess the same way, a kid in Indiana might be automatically, oh, you're going to be a basketball player or whatever, right? But talk about your dad. Your dad had a huge influence on your life. Talk about that a little bit.
For sure. Yeah, Dad, he was definitely his own man. He was a salesman at heart. No schooling. He ended up in the military before he was 17. Wanted to serve the country. Went through both the Marines and Army Basic. Ended up getting kicked out because he was too young. Along the way, he found his way to be a salesman, and he sold cars and land, and that's actually how our transition into off-road racing happened. Is he was a sales manager for Parnelli Jones, and Parnelli invited my dad to the Baja 1000 in 1970 because my dad was a self-taught pilot. Now, mind you, my dad never had a pilot's license, but he did have a plane.
The details. Right?
Small detail. But I can remember flying in it as a kid. But he went and flew for Parnelli, and my dad always taught me, you can do anything you want, if you put your mind to it, and you got to ask. You got to tell people what you want to do. And so sometimes I feel like I'm a little bit more outspoken than other people, but I feel like he taught me that I need to not be afraid to ask.
Sure.
And so that's part of, being sponsored and doing the things we do and being outgoing. And my dad was hardcore Baja racer. He started racing in '71. His first race, he blew up his first engine within by Santo Tomas, and he bought an engine off a family sitting on the side of the road in '71 with said his airplane was going to land and his pilot would write him a check. He proceeded to blow that engine up a little further down in San Vicente. So we have a love affair with Baja and racing, and Dad taught me all that. He brought my brother into it as well, and my mom, but it was really something that I really gravitated to. And so by the time I was 12, I was navigating with he and Johnny Johnson and Roy Allen, and my dad was pretty smart about it. Actually, I take a lot of interest in what Steve Menzies has done with Bryce and put him around a lot of different drivers, because that's what my dad did with me. Johnny was my main guy I learned from. I rode passenger with him, but also then I teamed up with Mike Leslie and David Hendrickson and raced with Rich Minga and just people that had been around, Craig Stewart, Ivan's son. And it was quite a learning experience, and I raced a ton of different classes, 516, 1216, 12, 7 4x4 with the factory Jeep team with Mike Leslie, class 7. I mean, there's been a lot of racing over the years. But Dad really, the number one thing my dad taught me was to just be your own person and, just do what makes you feel good, but at the same time treat people good. My dad was really passionate about being respectful, and also he started, he taught me early, he started helping Rancho Santa Marta, I think 30 plus years ago, and that's still the orphanage in Mexico that to this day that my family and Baja Beach Bash and all of our guys, Johnny Campbell and the Bulletproof Diesel guys, all support, and they're still doing it, and that's a good throwback to my dad. Every time I see Bill Lawrence, who started it, I think about my dad. I miss him. He's only been gone for a couple of years, and he's just larger than life, man. I'm 6'1", but my dad was 6'4", and I'm trying to stay under 200 pounds my whole life. My dad at one point was like 380, huge man, massive, and just a dominant figure, and used to get in a 5/1600 car that big. But I'm proud to be his son, and I'm really proud of the legacy he left behind for us to follow in, and I think we're doing him proud. It's sometimes it's hard, but at the same time, it's super gratifying to be doing it.
Sure. And I mean, now you're a dad, so you get to carry that forward. What's that like for you? I mean, it's now you have a 9-year-old and then a 1.5-year-old, right? So it's a pretty good spread, but
A lot of people ask me, they're like, oh, when's your daughter going to start racing? And I'm like, well, whenever she asks to start racing. Right now she's into horseback riding and singing and ballet. And so I love being her dad, their dad, but Kay specifically, who's named after her grandma. Actually, she's cursed with my first name. Her name's Cameron Kay, but she's named after her grandma who passed away in the 90s, my mom. And she's just doing her thing, and it's so rad. And I love taking her on trail of missions and taking her out in the Can-Am and taking her out in the dirt. And my new daughter, my younger daughter, is out throwing rocks and like putting rocks down her shirt and stuff. And I'm like, that's my kid right there for sure, because that's how we grew up, my brother and I. I mean, we're just little kids, either in an RV or a hotel. I mean, I can remember being, sub 10 years old, standing around at the Baja Hotel in Ensenada, waiting for radio transmissions to be transmitted onto a piece of paper and stuck on a wall to give you updates of where your race car was. There was no radios, there was no sat phones, there wasn't cell phones.
Sure.
I mean, heck, there was hardly even telephones.
Right.
So those are the early days of score racing, and we were there for it. And for me, it's a passion to share the stoke of the dirt with people, and that's why we do the trips and a lot of the things we do. And that's what I'm having a lot of fun with my daughter, is showing her where to park when we go surfing in Baja and how to get out of the sand if we get stuck.
Oh, it's really cool. I mean, you also did that with your relationship with your wife, Heidi, and she started going racing as well and did actually really well and had a really good time doing it. It wasn't like, that was one of the things that I remember, witnessing, was that she wasn't like, just doing it because you were into it. She really dug it, she was really into it.
Yeah, it was funny. Back in 2003, we won the Baja 1000 and 1600. And my wife had never been camping or off-roading or motorcycle riding. And so in the late 90s, we got married and started taking her camping and off-roading. And so when I got back into racing, when I had been able to accomplish enough as an announcer to build enough income to start going and start being a part of it and get some sponsors, she's like, I don't want to be a spectator. And so by 2004, she was racing, and she won with my neighborhood kids, Cody and Bean, amongst others. They won the Baja 500 and Baja 1000 in sportsman buggy class, and they won the championship.
That's rad.
I was like, holy crap, now what? So we came up with a plan. We bought a Ford Ranger from someone, and next thing I know, she's racing 7SX and winning races with Vano and a bunch of BR and a bunch of Danny Ellender, who still works with us. And they were doing great, and it started becoming something. And by the time the 2007 season came around, or 8 season, she won the Best in the Desert and the Score Championships in limited truck. She's the first woman, as far as I understand, she's the first woman to ever win a championship in Best in the Desert, first woman to ever win a truck championship in either one.
Nice.
I was like, wow. And then I had announced for Dirt Sports, a magazine, Driver of the Year. I believe I was there for Carl Renazetter and Shannon Campbell's awards. And next thing you know, my wife is winning Dirt Sports Driver of the Year. I was like, holy crap, she's like the most successful Steele in the family.
What did that feel like? Because, when you start dating somebody, you get married, you have these expectations, but did you ever have the expectation that she would love what you love that passionately?
Well, what's interesting about Heidi is that she's well educated. She has a master's degree, but she earned that and while we were married. But she's very outgoing and personable, but at the same time, she's really bolted down and can really get the job done, so to speak. So she's totally opposite of me. We're polar opposites. Like, I'm like, woo-hoo-hoo, we'll get it figured out, we'll get the budget organized, after we do it. But she's like, hey, I've got these businesses to run, and she's like, really total opposite of me, as I said, but she had that eye of the tiger for anything she wanted to do. And so you really don't, when you meet someone, I actually met her a decade before we got engaged. We didn't date in that time, but I knew her. And I was always pretty mesmerized by her outgoing personality and, of course, her beauty, but her smarts, her brain. And she just used that brain to figure out how to navigate and organize the racing and how to best propel it. And I mean, she won 5 championships. She's not done racing, but we don't talk about it a lot, but we kept growing her career, and she won 5 championships. I think she won 4 Baja 1000s. She ended up winning in the mid-size unlimited class, which at the time was called 6. Now it's all class 7. And we moved her to trophy truck, and she had a great year with Jessica McMillan. They actually finished top 10 in the points.
Yep, I remember that one.
And they had some really good runs. She beat me at one of the races. I know that for sure. She beat me in the points. I want to say they were maybe 6th in points. Mm-hmm. And then they raced another year, didn't have as much success. But at the end of the year, I was like, hey, babe, why don't you go race this other race, just you, and, we'll come out and support you and, get some more time. She ended up having a pretty good crash and a concussion, and being a new mom, we kind of decided to park that for a little bit. It took quite some time to get her back on her feet completely, where she wasn't waking up in the morning or in the middle of the night and setting up and having not being dizzy.
Yeah.
So the concussion's definitely nothing to mess around with. And
no, head injuries are scary.
Yeah, and crashing those big trucks is serious. Unfortunately, I've crashed them a couple times. Actually, ironically, the hole my wife crashed in, I believe it was in 2015, December. I went out in the next year's Mint 400 and crashed in the exact same hole. So we both did an endo barrel roll in it. So
what section of the Mint was
it's
that?
right on the side of the dry lake bed in the middle of the race course, where you nowadays we go
The opposite way.
It comes, I'm not sure, but we came from where would be the plant, the quarry.
Yep.
And came up the dirt road and went off to the right.
Yeah.
Off the paved road to the right.
Yeah.
And head out towards the lake bed, and you do a big U-turn back.
Yeah.
So I hit the edge of that dip that I knew was there, and that's where I crashed. I don't know which way she was going when she crashed, because I wasn't on the
that
racetrack.
area has some pretty big holes.
Yeah, so kind of ironic. But we're hoping to get her back out. We're actually doing a full facelift on her championship-winning Class 7 truck. We never got rid of it. So she won the 7SX championship and 2 truck championships, I think, in it. And we kept it, and I pre-ran in it for years. And now we've ground up, rebuilt the truck. So it's kind of exciting. We're going to get her back out there in the Ranger, and maybe a new Ranger. We've been talking about building a new race car for her.
Yeah, that's rad. Yeah, I mean, that's one of the things that I think is really cool is now you see a lot of women coming into the sport, mainly because of, they've seen people like Heidi be successful. And also the advent of UTVs, right? Which is kind of funny because, it's not that you didn't want to race UTVs, but it took you a while to get warmed up to
I
them.
didn't want to.
Now you're into them,
Yeah.
right? And for me, that's a fun thing because I was the guy going, "Hey, you gotta ride these things, you gotta race these things." Now everybody's onto them. So, are you having fun in UTVs as well?
I am. I'm having a good time. What's interesting is I had an opportunity with the Can-Am guys to do something a little different. So I'm not really a racer for the UTV class. I do race in it occasionally, but I'm really more of just a personality and kind of helping along with the team. I've grown a relationship with Phil Blurton, Mitchell Alsop, guys that are already embedded in the Can-Am team, and then working with them on the media side of it a little bit.
Right.
So, and we have Can-Am Corner here at Baja HQ, so we build UTVs, Can-Ams, and it's fun. I really like it. I have a ton of respect for it. I used to, of course, give it a hard time like everybody else did, but the equipment is pretty remarkable. And we were fortunate enough to win a race overall last year in UTV in Fallon, a Vora race, not a huge race. But my goal is to race it a few times when it makes sense for me. It can't take away from the trophy trucks.
Sure.
And it can't take away from the focus of everything we're doing.
Sure.
But it's a great component of the racing scene. I think the UTV has done good and bad things overall for the community. I think it has brought a lot of people in, but I think it's also, there's a lot of people there that don't maybe understand all the ropes and the safety of off-roading.
Sure.
So I think I would like to see more education of that.
Oh, certainly.
But overall, it's shocking what they can do. I get in my Can-Am and it's for all-wheel drive, and it has all the suspension, and I'm just like, wow.
And you bought a dealership.
You get it at a dealership, you can finance it.
Yeah.
And it's like, wow, I didn't, it's really mind-boggling. It really is. And it's changed the face of our sport. And like you said, it has brought in a lot of new drivers. And I respect that. I think it's really cool. And I think the lady side of it, which you're talking about with Heidi, Heidi was, one of her role models is obviously Judy Smith.
Yeah.
Off-Road Motorsports Hall of Famer. She's a legend. She's sold the Baja 1000 before. And, there's other great ladies, but, we kind of saw, obviously, Judy, how she did it, and we kind of, wanted to race and wanted to get Heidi out there. And I don't see, like, women and men when we race. Like, if you're a woman or a kid or whatever racing next to me, like a young person or old person, I'm gonna race you just as hard because I'm a race car driver.
Sure.
And that, to be honest with you, that was part of the reason why I didn't keep chasing the short course thing, because they started letting really young kids into the classes, and I thought it was gonna cause a rub with parents, and it's hard to race someone that's
Kids,
14 years old, and so I had an opportunity to spend more time announcing, so I kind of got out of it. And no disrespect to the kids, they have tons of talent, but I didn't necessarily want to be in there. When we were racing pro buggies in the day, I mean, whether it's Jerry Welchel, Larry Jobe, Dondell, so many great drivers, and you're banging, you're smashing, and there's a risk involved.
Sure.
And so I didn't feel like I wanted to be out there with the kids at the time, but it's awesome to see the transition of the sport and the youngsters coming into it. And again, I think UTV has been a great platform, whether it's short course or the World Championships or the Mint or other desert races. There's all these different classes and all these different groups of people that come, and I think that maybe the World Championships or King of the Hammers both have like this crazy wide scope of drivers, like from Jeremy McGrath in Supercross. You got guys that grew up riding motocross. You got short course drivers like the Greaves. You got rock racers like the Campbells, and you got the Currys who off-road. Ourselves, it's like this crazy wide group of people that are all racing UTV, which that makes that really cool too. And I think one thing that's been good about the UTV is it's interesting to me that the unlimited class never really took off, but I understand it because there's a factory support if you keep them kind of factory.
Sure.
And so I like where it is because it hasn't become, I think, granted there are $150,000 race cars.
There's some new
more,
right?
Yeah, maybe more, but it hasn't really become that $400,000 race car or whatever, and the trophy trucks that we race are somewhat unattainable to a lot of people unless you really work hard and get a sponsored ride, or you have independent wealth to do it, because you're talking about a $500,000 piece of equipment and a couple $1 million to run them, or $1 million to run them, whatever it is. Where I think the UTV, you can still compete in, if you put all the safety equipment on it and a moderate amount of upgrades, you can compete and race and have fun. It kind of feels a little bit like 1600 back in the day.
Sure.
But now the technology has gone past that, and so I fear a little bit that it'll become a $200,000 race car, and it'll make it so people don't feel like they're competitive. But I think that opening those other classes makes it so it's possible for people to be competitive.
Yeah, I mean, it has to be managed correctly. That's 100%, going to be the challenge. But
managing racers of any kind is a challenge, and I feel sorry for you as a promoter.
Well, it's funny because, I get to get counseled by Selfish quite a bit, and he'll always, call me and go, "Hey, so how many racers do you guys have?" And I go, "Oh, we have like 400 and something." He goes, "Okay, that's 400 and something liars who are want to win the race no matter what, right?" But no, it's for me it's really cool. I love the youth racing because what it reminds me of is motocross. Like, I remember back in the day going to Loretta Lynn's for the first time and seeing the youth racing there and going, "Oh, this is going to go on forever. There are generations upon generations, and we need the same thing in off-road." And 6 years ago at UTV Worlds, we started that with youth racing, and it's just taken off. And now, we're beginning to graduate these kids. Like, for me, one of the coolest experiences I had last year was going to Dakar and seeing, Mitch Guthrie Jr. spank adults, right?
Yeah.
And knowing him since he was a baby, you know, and now he's, you know, he's the man. And watching, you know, guys like Cyril Dupre look at him and go like, how is this kid so fast? Well, he's been racing since he was 6.
Yeah.
So it's cool. It's cool to see.
I think it's great to see the kids coming up in it. That's what I was fortunate about, was I got to drive off-road cars. I think my first drive was at the Mint back in the old Speedrome.
North Course, yeah.
North Course. My dad had a buggy, let us drive, my brother and I think I was probably 9, 10. It's like, you can drive it all over right here, but don't go across that highway over there.
Right.
Which, of course, we did.
Right.
And then we got our ticket pulled. But I remember just being able to drive as a youngster and then get into racing, like I said, when I was 12 as a navigator. But I think it's so rich for the kids to be able to go out and do that, and enriching, and gives them training, and that you're just sponging it and you're learning it. And I really have a big heart for the younger kids coming into the sport. I like to help however I can. You know, I was talking to Mitchell Alsop the other day. I'm like, I want to help you guys as much as I can, because I'm already kind of there, right? I'm already at that trophy truck. I've been there for 15 years.
Right.
I'm not really I'm not going to surprise anybody, so to speak, with like all of a sudden I'm on the stage of racing. I'm there, and for me, I'd rather pass this on to you and help usher you guys up, because you're cutting your teeth, and you guys, you know, they don't really need me because they're already winning. But I love the aspect of being able to be a part of the younger guys growing up and becoming racers, and someday they'll be our trophy truck racers. You know, when we're retired or when we're not racing anymore, someone's going to have to take over that spot, and I don't see it going anywhere. So it's fun to see the transition of the younger guys coming up, younger guys and girls.
No, absolutely. I mean, really, it's the first time in our history that we've had more kids than we could possibly handle, right? So that's a good thing. I mean, you know, back to you know, your career in racing. You know, you had a long career. You've had a long career of racing in Baja, and you know, you and I have been friends for years, and you know, it took you a long time to get that victory at the 1,000. I mean, at first, I don't think people understand how difficult that is, but talk a little bit about that process, you know, and what that was like for you.
Well, it was difficult. You know, I didn't have the ability to just go out and buy a truck. My partner, Clyde, at the time, we had been racing 1,600 cars and had some success, and our car got ruined, and Clyde bought a pre-runner, a pro truck, converted with a bigger engine. And our car got ruined, our 1,600 car got ruined, I think at the 04 500. And I was like, well, let's just go to Prim and let's race it in trophy truck. We're like, you know, who knows? And we called up to get a number, and 16 was available. Only one other team has ever raced under number 16, the Simon brothers, who I knew as a kid racing. Right. And, you know, we were 1,600 cc racers, you know, and I thought that was great. And so I said, we'll be number 16. And Clyde had, you know, we kind of had a pre-runner truck, and then Clyde got into it. Clyde's an engineer. He builds backplanes for computers and stuff, so he wanted to build race trucks. And so I was like, oh, I can't do that. So I called Jesse Jones, who had a trophy truck he wasn't racing. I said, will you sell me that? I go, I just don't have any money. And Jesse financed a trophy truck for me and made it possible for me to go racing. And so
he owned it, and he let you make payments on it.
Yes. He said, he didn't even ask for payments. Actually, the deal was, and I hope he doesn't mind telling, but he's like, just pay me before Christmas 2 years from now. And I was like, it's hard to say no. You know, it was $168,000, and it was kind of like a hodgepodge truck at the time because someone had cut the front off of it. And no disrespect to that builder, it was a great front, but I wanted an all Geyser Brothers truck. I bought the truck, and then I took it to Rick and Jeff, and I'm like, you know, I'd been racing with Pete, I had raced with Rick, and I said, Rick, let's race together. I need you to, you know, cut the front end off and put your newest stuff on it. And so I think the trajectory for me was, you know, we got to the trophy truck class. We had some media background because I had been hosting TV shows, you know, at that time for over probably a decade, or not quite actually. That was like 2007, so I started announcing in 1998. Yeah, so almost a decade, and had some notoriety from that, and could build some sponsors. And we Cabo Wabo Tequila sponsored us, and then we kind of kept going, and obviously we're big with Monster now. And there's a lot of transitions there, and the transitions were learning the game, but not at the very highest level immediately. We had to earn our way into the bigger motors. We had a NASCAR builder who was very gracious and helped us out, and we learned that we needed to find something else. And we were actually Ray Fields at Dugan's very first trophy truck customer with Clyde. Yeah, so it's we go way back, but it took cutting our teeth and figuring it out, and we had to walk before we could run. And we had flashes of competitiveness, and we had some big sponsors, and we had some limitations. And really the thing that changed the world for me was we got to spend basically a decade racing trophy trucks and had some success. We had been on the podium at the Baja 1000, and then I had an opportunity to race with BF Goodrich, and that really changed our paradigm to be able to do that. And not just the tires and the engineering, but the back end of it and the relationship. And now the full support of it. And we went right out there and had some really, the very first year we ran for the win. We were right in the mix, and I was like, I was on the verge of retirement. I was ready to quit. I was really struggling. Didn't feel like we were, we had that consistent, like we could be fast, but we weren't in the mix really. Like we're just outside the mix, and I was just ready to quit. I was frustrated.
We'll talk about that because, I was there, right? And like I could see, everything that goes into this, right? And again, like for people who don't understand this, it's like how many people you convince to come down there for free and support you, and you pulled every favor that you can imagine for sponsorship, and like, it's a war. You're going to a war, and you're just like, you've convinced an army to go to war with you, and then one part breaks, and you're only a third of the way through, and you're down in Baja, and it's like, what do you, what's that like? Because like, I feel it. I feel the tension. I feel the, the disappointment. And it's like, what do you say to people, and what's that feel like? I mean,
you really feel like you're letting people down. I mean, and it's not necessarily your fault, but maybe you didn't have the budget to buy that rear gear, or maybe you didn't have maybe you didn't know there was a new part for the transmission because you're not in that Fab 5 of the class, and you don't have that engineering. And so we made that transition, and I was like, I was at the point where, people were saying, just drive like your 1600 car, like you used to win. I'm like, if I drive like 1600 car, it's going to break. It can't do that. And I still, to this day, I'll tell you, you can't drive them as hard as a 1600 car. They'll go a lot really fast for a while, but you'll end up destroying them. But, I was just at this transitional point in my racing career where I felt like I was beating my head against the wall, and I was tired of people saying that we weren't going to win, that we couldn't win. And we got second at the Mint 400, which was, pretty solid finish, and it kind of was dashed from us right at the end. Andy McMillan ended up winning, of course, right? He's such a great racer, and you battle with him, he's good.
Yeah.
And he's just...
But he's the obvious guy. He's got the support, he's got the money, he's got the talent, right? Like that wasn't like a surprise.
Yeah, I guess it wasn't a surprise. And then we did have a win where we raced with BJ and the Herps guys all day in 2011. Felt good, but I just was like at that point where I didn't care, and we put the tires on and we just became credible. We all of a sudden, but we had to re-engineer our thinking, and we had to figure out how to really get in the game. We led some races, and then by 2017, after 2 years, we were second at the Peninsula around Baja 1000, and that's a huge testament to Mike Kraft, who came in 2016, I believe it was. Maybe it was the end of 15, and he's like, basically, you're a dumbass. You're doing this all wrong, and he became our race engineer. And we had some good success in 16, but we had some mechanical failures, and Kraft was like, don't expect, inspect. And so we dug down into all of our parts and all of the things we were doing. And Kraft was like, this is dumb. We went to some meetings where he just basically was like, I can't believe what I just heard. And he drilled down and figured out what the weak points were for our team and weak points specifically for me. So because of my driving style, there's certain things that I'm harder on the truck. And so he figured all that out. And in 2017, Kraft was like, we're going to get this done. And I don't think a lot of people give us a huge amount of credit for winning the NORA 1000.
Right.
But it is a race.
Sure.
And it is 1,500 miles.
Sure.
And Kraft had a lot of good ideas. And we used them there, and we tested the truck. A lot of people don't know this, but I think in 15 and 16, we went Baja, and 17, we went Baja 500, safety inspection, Vegas to Reno, and raced it. So we're racing 1,000 miles, testing for the 1,000. And Kraft was helping to drive that ship and get all that there. And when we won in 18, Kraft played a major part in that. My focus that day, I never thought for 1 second that we were not going to win that race. I felt from the moment go, and I got caught on the highway by Abdali. We let him go. We broke our transmission. We lost first gear, and our tranny builder said that probably means you don't have reverse either. And I told Pat Dean through the MSAT, I'm like, hey, you've got to decide when you get in the car at mile 380 or whatever it was, what you want to do. I don't know your section. Can you do it without first gear or reverse? We got to a pit, we took on fuel, and I tried reverse, and there was no reverse, so I confirmed it. And Pat went for it, and Pat, I think, has a very similar trajectory to me. He's a second generation racer. He's had a lot of success, but not the success.
Right.
And I think that it was the right guys at the right time. And I know that there was a penalty to Rob, which actually made it so we could win, but we were racing right there on time. But I felt like I knew what was going to happen. And we raced to that. We raced to our plan. We engineered it to that plan. And we had just missed it in 17. Granted, we missed it by 40 minutes because I made a mistake further down the peninsula. But we had just kind of missed our trajectory of being in that position to win in 17. And Kraft says, we're going to fix this. We're going to do this. And we got there in 18 and we won. We won the race before, the 400 or the Tijuana Challenge.
Right.
And I was like, oh no. I was so excited to win, but at the same time, I'm like, we won the wrong race.
Right.
It's like, you're not going to win two trophy truck races in Baja back to back.
No, and that was like, what's this race, right?
Yeah, right. It's like there's like 15 entries, and like it's like people are like, whatever. And I was like, my dad had just passed, and I was like, Dad gave us that power, but all that power from my dad and from Kraft and from the team and from Dugan's and from Renee building the car and from everybody involved, my navigator Cody, Scott Conley, Greg DiStefano, all these people, right? All that energy, all of a sudden we won that small race in Baja, and I'm like, damn, we won a Baja race. And I was like, I hope we didn't just screw ourselves for the 1,000.
Right.
Right. It was like 2 months later. I'm like, the Baja gods are not going to open that window twice for you.
Right.
In one season in fall. But it happened, So I mean, that's
one of the other crazy things is like, again, I just don't think, people understand how many things need to go right. You can have the best team, the perfect equipment, everything goes perfect, and you're still not going to win. Right?
Well, and what's crazy is you can have the best team, but there's how many best teams are there? There's Rob Mack, there's the Herbst brothers, there's Bryce, there's Andy, there's Tavo, there's a lot. There's a lot of guys, a lot of people that have good teams, that have good techs building their cars, they have good sponsors, they have good financial support, they have good tires. Dan and Luke, all these people have the ability and multi-generational, and they've lived down there just like we have, right? We've pre-ran for a month, but we've been living there for 30 years, right?
Absolutely.
We're immersed in we love Mexico as much as we love America. We are in it.
Yeah.
And it's not just me.
No.
It's all those guys, all their dads, all their moms, all their race teams. So when you go down there to race, I've totally changed my philosophy. I'm not racing against Andy or Bryce or Dan or Luke or Tavo or Rob. Racing against Baja. Baja has to, and I've said it before, Baja has to part the cactus. It has to be your day. The sun has to shine on your dog's ass once in a while.
True.
And some days it's your day.
Yeah.
And we had a couple days, you know, we've been so fortunate. We just finished 4th at the Baja 1000. You know what? I was bummed. I was kind of let down because I didn't feel like we had a great race. We kind of crapped on ourselves all the way. But then Kraft's like, dude, we just got 4th at the Baja 1000. Yeah, you didn't win, but how many people? 3 people were better than you.
Right.
Us, whatever, he said.
Right.
And I thought about it. I'm like, damn, he's right. And in 6 years, we've been 3rd, 2nd, 1st, 4th, and a couple, you know, scattered problems. We've been really fortunate.
Talk about that win though, because from a person who knows you, right, and understands, like, again, how difficult it is. That was a monumental thing.
Yeah.
You know, what was that like? Did that feel like, okay, I'm finally redeemed? I'm the guy who takes everybody to Baja. I'm the guy who races Baja. Yet I've never won it. I have to talk about all these other guys. So what was that like for you winning that race?
I think it was sweet. You know, it was cool to be able to do it with the group that we did it with. You know, I think an unexpected winner like myself, the way I would look at it, an unexpected winner like Pat, 2 guys that had been journeyman racers who had really put their life into off-road racing to get that day. And then when you think about it, to do it for, you know, the excitement that Pat's dad had, that Butch had, right? And my dad, who had just passed away, he was the ashes were racing in the car with us, you know? To be able to do that and stamp our family's name at the top of that trophy, I mean, when you think about all the people that have won that race, the names in our hierarchy of our sport, you know, it is absolutely stunning to know that the Steele and the Dean name are on there.
Sure.
And so for me, more than anything, it was redemption for my family. It was the quest that my dad had started in '71. He raced on limited cars. I mean, class 1, class 8. He ended up going back to 5/1600 because I don't think that we had the time or the finances to stay in those unlimited classes as they grew. And so he went back to 5/16, but that's where he taught me. And I learned, and I went the other way, right? So it's like he was up here in the class 1s and then kind of came down here to 5/16 where I started, and then I went up to the trophy truck. And back to your point, we had 90 people there this year, right? It's like, and now we're, you know, blessed to be sponsored by Ford with the Bronco and be a part of that. I mean, I'm living my dream, right? I'm living that dream. I mean, yes, I've ridden dirt bikes, and yes, I rode waves professionally when I was a kid, but those weren't really my dream trajectories, right? My dad and mom took me to Baja and put me in the race car and taught me everything I knew about being a human, about being a racer, and I paid them back. I closed the circle with 90 people, or however many people. I mean, we start talking about the builders and all the people that put in the effort. You know, hundreds of us closed that circle to pay that off for my dad and mom's effort.
That's really rad.
It's crazy to think about.
Well, it's you know, again, you know, obviously it's personal for me as well because of being friends to you. And, you know, I remember that win, and everybody was like, oh, thank God. Like, thank God this happened, right? Like, I think, you know, there's a lot of popular teams and there's a lot of, you know, popular racers, but I don't think anybody in off-road racing today has done as much as you have. And so I think everybody kind of had this almost collective sigh of relief of like, finally Cameron won this. Okay, can we go forward now, right?
Yeah.
So that was pretty rad.
I think that the coolest part about winning the 1,000, to your point, wasn't just winning the 1,000. It was the goodwill of the community, and I think that people were genuinely stoked for us. Like, I agree with you that there was a collective sigh of relief that maybe we were never going to do it and we got it done, and that people could say, damn, they did that, you know? And so that I totally feel that the community was behind us all the way on that.
Well, it's, you know, maybe sigh of relief isn't actually the right phrase. Maybe it was like the stoke, right? Like your mission is always to share the stoke, whether it's with, you know, tours or taking people racing, or, you know, even your new business with Baja HQ. You know, that's what you're doing, is you're sharing your love and your passion for off-road racing with other people.
For sure. I mean, I think that just sharing the outdoors and making dust, and Kurt Leduc has the best quote, you know, turning dollars into dust. Right. And I think that it's very fitting. You know, for me, being able to see the expression on someone's face when they see that spot in Baja that they've heard about, and that smile, you know how it is, you share with people down there. It's rad. It's awesome. The other day, I live in Orange County. I've lived here for my whole life. And I talked to one of my daughter's friends' dads. They'd never been off-roading before. They'd never been in the dirt. I was like, oh, well, it's funny you should say that. We're going to go to Saddleback Mountain tomorrow on a dirt road. He's like, oh, yeah, well, I have a minivan. I'm like, yeah, well, I have an extra truck. You can drive it. It's like, what?
Right.
I don't get it. It's like it's the truck I drove here. It has 900 miles on it.
Right.
He drug it through the bushes.
I saw the pinstripe.
He dusted it up. That just seeing those kids' faces. He brought his 3 kids. They'd never been off-roading.
Right.
I think a 5th grader, a 3rd grader, and a kindergarten kid. And they were just like running around in the dirt, throwing rocks, taking pictures, and just like watching the sunset from the top of Saddleback Mountain. And it's so innate, right? It's right there.
Yeah.
It's like dumb.
Yeah.
It's dumb. It's like,
it's
oh, that's
cool.
not off-roading.
Yeah.
But it is.
It totally is.
And it shares that vibe, and that's what it's all about for me, is just seeing that look on people's faces. And I know that I can't always share that in racing, but when the kid comes up for an autograph or a poster or high five or whatever, I mean, obviously times are different right now, but that's sharing that stoke. That's passing that fun along to someone else. And that, I mean, I love it when the kids say, do wheelie in Baja.
Right.
I don't generally do a wheelie because there's too many people around, but you know, every once in a while you bust a wheelie out and you go back and the guys give them stickers, and you know, the people, you know, other riders and whatever. It's just the camaraderie of it is unbelievable, and it's hard to get that in other sports, because one thing I think is the best about Baja is there's so many places where there's no cell phone. Yeah. Right. So you and I were talking outside, and I checked my cell phone like 3 times. Right. It's kind of rude, but it's kind of, you know, what it is.
It's the world today.
But you get out there where there's no Wi-Fi, there's no cell signal.
Can only be in the moment, you know, and that's one of the reasons why I love it. You know, let's talk a little bit about, you know, now you have Baja headquarters, right? What's that all about?
Baja HQ is just an extension of the stupidity of trying to find a way to share the fun, but, you know, call it work. And, you know, I call trophy truck racing my job, right? And building media around racing and off-roading, and having a shop is just a totally logical thing to do. My good buddy, Brandon Pioric, who's been going racing with us for 40 years, 35 years, whatever, went to high school with him. He's like, he's been in off-road aftermarket for the last 15 or 18 years or whatever, and he's like, let's open a shop. I'm like, I mean, okay, let's, you know, we started talking about it, and what really ended up happening is I talked about it a little bit, and a couple people kind of called me out on it. Well, I had a TV show that was going out without a presenting sponsor. I'm like, I'm just going to start a business and put our name on it. Right? And Baja HQ didn't have a logo, didn't have anything, but Brandon had a commitment to do it. And boom, here we are. Now there's a few of us that own Baja HQ. We're having fun with it. And I think that the whole aspect of it is cool. People walk in the front door, they're smiling. Right. They want to talk about putting 37s on the Raptor, or putting tires on their Subaru or their minivan or their Sprinter van or whatever, but all of them are excited about that fun of going off-roading. And so we bring them in, We have monitors with all these off-road shows, not races, mostly just shows, event, like trips we've been on or whatever. And then we show them what we've been doing and show them our cars and like share the story. In front of Baja HQ, there's 10 cars every single day that are off-road modified. People come down just to look at them and talk about them. You can come here, you don't have to buy anything. Just come here and breathe it in and be a part of it.
Sure. And
that's what I love it. I would love Baja HQ to be a successful business, but I look more at it like a clubhouse. Like, before COVID, we would have parties for any reason that was great. We celebrated the Dakar champions for Ricky Brabeck and Casey Curry. We had Baja 1000 winners here. When we didn't win, we did a whole Baja 1000 winner thing. I think it was at Arciero, and I can't remember everybody that was involved, but the things we do are just, we want to have fun, and share that with people.
More than anything, what it reminds me of is a skate shop, right?
Yeah, same.
It's like the off-road skate shop, right? Which I think is really cool. And, what I like is that people can come in here and they can get their aftermarket parts for their street vehicles, but they can see your race cars, right? Mm-hmm. And that makes it attainable. You know what I mean? And I think that's really cool. I've really dug what you're doing here, and
Thank you.
Stoked that it's too in San Clemente, right? That's the other thing is like, I think, San Diego and this area, this is the Mecca, and these places need to exist more and more, really. It's kind of like saying, oh yeah, you don't have a skate shop in San Diego. It's littered with them, right?
Right. Yeah.
So
I like the analogy of the skate shop because I remember growing up, you'd want to like sit around and listen to people you see boards, you look at the wheels, like there's so many different options.
Just hang out
in there, and then you go skate the ramp. I'm bummed we can't have a race course in the backyard. It'd be cool, like if skate shop had a ramp.
Right.
Like we have the race cars, but we can't actually rip them around the yard.
We need some like portable ramps we can just stick out front for a minute and then put them back.
Yeah, like on the weekends when no one's in the neighborhood, just have the jumps put out front.
I don't think
we could call Robbie and ask him for a couple of the jumps.
Right.
Sure.
I'm sure that'd go over great with your neighbors.
I
right?
love it.
So you've accomplished all these things, and we were talking about some of the earlier. We were talking about some of the different trips that you want to go on. I mean, one of the cool ones that I saw was Iceland. So what's next? What are you gonna do?
Well, next is high on our list of things to do is my number one thing is to be a good dad and a good husband, which my wife is helping coach me along. But from a racing and off-roading standpoint, my main goal is to win the Baja Peninsula Run. We haven't done that yet. From the racing standpoint, King of the Hammers is super high on my list. The Mint 400 is high on my list. The Mint and the Baja 1000 Peninsula Run are two historical races that my dad spent a ton of time racing, and I've raced a ton. Those are two we need to bank. The King of the Hammers thing is just a whole new challenge, and it's the Burning Man of off-road. It's just crazy, so many people. I really want to be a part of that. But we have branched out on our adventures. We don't, just to be clear, we don't operate tours. We don't advertise. No one can just call and go. It's a kind of a small, more media-based thing. So we do a couple trips in Baja. We do have one big open trip called Baja Beach Bash. With Johnny Campbell and Mark Moss, and over the last few years we've been able to raise $500,000 for our orphanage through that, which is a big part of what we do, and I want to keep doing that. But I would like to get to some more countries. I've been fortunate to ride dirt bikes in Australia, in New Zealand, in Portugal, Costa Rica, and Iceland, as well as Mexico. And we're looking at doing some more trips with the group of people we do, and I'd like to branch that out media-wise. I have a media idea to ride all these different places, and I just want to get out and share that dirt and the dust. And we do it a little different. We'll go ride for 5 or 6 days, then we'll bring our families in to spend time and learn the culture and share it with the kids and stuff like that. So I think my immediate future is just to keep sharing, get out, stretch our legs a little bit, share it with the kids. Grow Baja HQ, and work at winning those 3 races that are really high on our list of things to do. It's it's interesting because as you get a little bit older, you start realizing that you're not going to be viable to win those races forever.
Sure.
And it's not something you think about when you're 20. But when you're 40 or more, you start thinking about that and you wonder, you know, I feel like I'm pretty competitive in the trophy trucks.
Definitely.
I think I can go faster, but I think that I'm running the pace that will get the truck to the finish line and be on the podium. And I think that there's a few years left in the can for that for me. I'm pretty excited about racing right now. I think this last 5 years has been spectacular, and we've had some great results. We have a great team around us with Renee building, and obviously Mike Kraft, Bobby Picoy, Cody Wagoner, and all the people that are really a big part of it. And I'm having fun with it, and they're having fun, and that's what's really key. Is if you're not having fun doing it, there's no reason to do it. And we try to keep it light enough to where we're off-roading, having fun and laughing, but still putting enough effort into win, but not being so hard-nosed at it that you can't have a smile and a laugh. And, you know, sometimes shit breaks, and that's just part of it, you know?
Totally.
And unfortunately, we've been a part of that too.
Yeah.
Crashing sucks. We try to avoid that.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Well, that was awesome. I really appreciate the time, brother. This has been long overdue, and yeah, more victories, more trips. I'm down.
More champagne, more trophies, more good times, more smiles, right?
Exactly.
You know, and just high fives all around. That's really what drives me. Thank you for the opportunity, and thanks for all you do for our sport.
Awesome. Thanks, brother.